Hey there everyone, I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel, where you'll find some of the most fair and honest game reviews out here. And today we're talking about Diddy Kong Racing. This is a classic for a lot of people on the Nintendo 64, and a nice alternative to Mario Kart 64. But was it actually good, or was it mediocre? If you were a Nintendo fan in the late 90s, you probably played a lot of games on the N64. Many enjoyed the multiplayer games that were on it. But while there was a diverse lineup of multiplayer experiences, we got the occasional quirky and colorful one here and there. Diddy Kong Racing was first released on the Nintendo 64 in 1997. It got re-released for the Nintendo DS years later with a few changes. The game was developed by Rare and was originally very different. Development started after Killer Instinct 2, with a plan to make a real-time strategy game that was called Wild Cartoon Kingdom. But when things shifted around at the studio and other big games got delayed, Rare ended up putting together a racing game with Diddy Kong. This was based off a concept for Pro-Am 64, a follow-up to the RC Pro-Am game that was on the NES. The logic was that Diddy Kong was a more recognizable name that would attract more people during Christmas that year, while upcoming games like Banjo-Kazooie were still in development. The story of Diddy Kong Racing takes place on Timbers Island. Diddy and friends encounter the evil Whizpig from space. Whizpig wants to take over the island and uses the 4 island guardians as his henchmen to do so. This prompts everyone to group up with the aid of Taj the Elephant Genie and face Whizpig's challenges in order to save the island. It's a very silly story, but it's enough to give a reason for getting everyone together for a race. Now, the story of this game is really silly. It's nothing too crazy to cry home about. I do appreciate it being there, even though it's very surface level, it's kind of ridiculous, but you really just want a surface level story to just give a reason for everybody getting together to race and not harp too much on it. I would appreciate a more in-depth story, but I'm not going to cry home about this. It's just totally fine as far as I'm concerned. Now, the other interesting thing to really focus on here is that this is the first time that we really see characters like Banjo and Conker. I know that Conker and Banjo had other games here and there, obviously Banjo-Kazooie, obviously Conker's Bad Fur Day or Conker's Furry Tales, different stuff like that on various platforms. But seeing them together and also knowing that in the very next version of this game, where it appeared on the Nintendo DS, they were no longer part of this game. They actually got replaced by other characters, which I believe one of them was Trixie or Dixie Kong. Can't be certain for sure. It's been years since I played the DS version. But the main thing is that it's cool seeing that type of stuff here because it's kind of like a time capsule of that time frame. The games industry in general, and also Rare as a company, was very different back then compared to how it is now. Of course, we could talk about that stuff all day. There's a lot of history there that people are fascinated with. But what we really need to talk about is the gameplay, because that's where I feel Diddy Kong Racing gets a lot of attention, deservedly so, for better and worse. No matter what anybody tells you, Rare always had a good habit of delivering quality games. Don't get me wrong though, I have some gripes here. But at the time it came out, Diddy Kong Racing was very solid. This was during the golden age of Rare after all. At its core, Diddy Kong Racing is a good racing game with a few hiccups here and there that luckily don't ruin the fun experience. Like Mario Kart 64, you control a character and race on a number of different tracks in different locations. You can use items to gain an edge over your opponents and reach the finish line in first place. But what makes the game unique, however, is the different modes of transportation you have. Races will have you riding a car, a hovercraft, or a plane. This is cool because it mixes things up, with some tracks allowing you to choose which vehicle you can control beforehand. I won't lie though, the handling on some of them can be a little aggravating, especially on sharp turns or tracks with a lot of curves. But a lot of this can change depending on your character and the vehicle you ride. There's so many permutations for how a race can feel. Regardless, I think that it's all done successfully. With game modes, you have a choice of either the adventure mode or single races with up to 4 other players. You'll end up playing the adventure mode to unlock tracks for single races, but you do have a few of them open at the start. Adventure mode is where you'll spend the most time, however, which is both a good and a bad thing. You have a single-player adventure that will take you through everything in the game. However, you'll be repeating a lot of things over and over again. This includes finishing races and traversing the same areas multiple times. My biggest turnoff is how you have to finish every single race twice, with the second one requiring you to gather coins and other items in order to progress to the end. That wouldn't be so bad if the game didn't also require you to get first place in the race too. This can be super annoying. The game gets a huge difficulty spike because of this too. Some races aren't that bad, but the more challenging ones will have you retrying many times over. Whether it's because you missed a few coins, forgot to get the key, or just didn't get first place. You'll get mad at some point trying to do everything.
Well done, kid! Now try my new challenge! Collect all of my silver coins from around the dial domain. You must find 8 from each level and win, and then come back to see me.
A characteristic of racers around that time frame, so this includes games like Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Cruising Worlds, Gran Turismo, Crash Team Racing, is that there's this rubber band effect with the different bot characters you're going up against in races. What that means is basically as you're playing the race, every once in a while a CPU character will just rubber band straight towards like second or third place or right behind you enough to keep you on your toes. While it does have some sort of element of difficulty and like tension to it, it gets very annoying and could cost you a lot of different races depending on what's going on in them. What happens specifically in Diddy Kong Racing is that rubber band effect could really cost you races, particularly in areas and tracks that have different types of curves and a lot of turns to them, where not only do you have to deal with the handling of your vehicle, but the computer themselves are like really good at driving and really good at handling, even on the easier difficulties, where not only they'll hit all the different boosters, but they'll totally outdrive you in most cases, even if you have like different weapons and items at your disposal. That could get super annoying. Some people might argue that's just a difficulty, but when you start seeing certain racers like come from way far behind you and like right on top of your butt there, it just becomes super annoying. Again, later in the game, that becomes super frustrating. The places where you really see this come into play are the boss fights, which are really boss races. There's no fighting in this game per se, but the boss races when you're fighting that Triceratops, the Squid, Whizpig, and all these other characters, pretty much the main like 4 or 5 bosses, this is where it really becomes a problem, because not only do the bosses have like a lot of speed right from the get-go, but even if you use items against them and you get ahead of them, they can not only trample over you, but they could just gather their speed really fast and just completely overwhelm you, forcing you to redo those races over and over again. And it's not like they're even hard. Like some of them are just straightaways, or there's just a couple turns here and there where you have to go from point A to point B. But during the course of the race, when you're starting to see that stuff actually happen to you, and it's very hard to recover, that's when things can become frustrating. And for most people, I feel like this is the type of spots where most people will just check out, and I kind of don't blame them. So we covered all the main points about the gameplay, right? But what about all this other stuff that most people don't really talk about? I mean, specifically the extra content that's in Diddy Kong Racing. Because believe it or not, many of you might have not known, there's some interesting extra content that's hit or miss. Now there is some unlockable content in Diddy Kong Racing, but don't expect them to be easy to get. You unlock the second adventure after beating Whizpig the first time in Future Funland. You then need to collect platinum balloons in mirrored versions of the racetracks in order to finish the game again. Aside from that, you can also unlock bonus characters like TT and Drumstick, but getting them is super hard. You need to not only collect every single trophy and amulet within the game, but you also need to beat all of the time trials, which is super annoying. You'll honestly be at this for a long time. For me, this is one of those times where the reward to get stuff is not worth the crazy amount of effort to do it. The time trials and extra races are not impossible, but they can be difficult enough to be rage-inducing. Now, I love cheat codes. I appreciate them. I come from the era where cheat codes were really a thing, where you could just see all the different content that a game had to offer, especially if you didn't want to go through the trouble of unlocking everything for stuff like multiplayer. And Diddy Kong Racing has a bunch of cheat codes. They're called magic codes, and they have a variety of effects, right? However, the one nitpick I can't have about this game is that there is no cheat code or magic code to unlock all the racetracks and characters from the get-go. I get it, it is cheating, and technically you should play the game to unlock this stuff, but if I'm just trying to play multiplayer with some friends and we just got a brand new card where somebody didn't unlock all the different stuff, I really feel like that type of stuff should be in here, especially if you're already going to do cheat codes like that. At least give people the option, because it could be a real pain to get some of these characters and to unlock some of these tracks. It could take a long time, and I get it that most people out there might not want to deal with the frustration of playing all this stuff. It really comes down to a preference thing. I get it. I totally understand that some people want to play and earn that stuff to feel like a sense of accomplishment, but I'm trying to think of like every possible scenario and the wider scope when playing this game and the value that you could get out of it. Because most games, especially on the Nintendo 64 that were first party, had a lot of multiplayer aspects to it, and it was a little bit annoying when you always had that friend that had a card or they brought a new card over and not all the stuff was unlocked, so you had to kind of deal with a few characters or a few stages. People dealt with this all the time with Super Smash Brothers. So if you experienced that type of thing back in the day, you totally get where I'm coming from. But again, it's a preference thing. Just saying. Well, can I say that the nostalgia that people have for this game blind everybody to the truth? Can I recommend that you play Diddy Kong Racing on the Nintendo 64? I honestly think that it's a fun game to play for a while, but not something I would be in a rush to completely finish. I think that the racing itself is solid and can be very fun with other players. But while adventure mode was ambitious for the time, I find the repetitiveness to be a drag and the wild difficulty to be certain parts pretty frustrating. It's a colorful and upbeat game, definitely, but honestly, it's not the best kart racer that I've ever played. Sorry to break it to you, but it's just okay to me. And there you go, everyone. Those are my thoughts about Diddy Kong Racing for the Nintendo 64. A lot of what I say here could also be applied to the Nintendo DS version or any other ported versions of that game for like Nintendo Switch Online and such. The main thing is that I think this game is good, but it's not the best like mascot kart racer that's out there. I do feel like it's probably not as good as Mario Kart 64. A lot of people will really go back and forth between those games. Is it better than Crash Team Racing? That's like a whole other conversation we should probably have one day. But overall, I still think like despite my nitpicks and stuff, I feel like Diddy Kong Racing still is fun. It could still be enjoyed even today. Regardless though, that's just my opinion about Diddy Kong Racing. Let me know your thoughts about this game down below in the comment section. Tell me, are you a big fan of Diddy Kong Racing? Did you own it back in the day? Did you own the Nintendo DS version? What did you think about the changes it had? What are some of your other favorite kart racers or mascot racers or games that star like different characters that are quote unquote iconic or very recognizable? Talk to me about that stuff down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. I appreciate your support and I hope you enjoyed checking it out. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and don't forget to leave me a like on this video and post a comment down below too. It helps out the channel a ton. You could also join my Discord server via the link in the description box to come be part of the community we have there. Whether you agree or disagree with me, come chat about games with everybody in there. It's a lot of fun people that I know you'll get a kick out of. Hope to see you again soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.